The alien girl took him as a war trophy, now she's the one shaking in his arms. They stand at the center of the war chamber beneath a looming skylight that filters pale, shifting light onto the circular floor. Between them lie discarded alien pistols, human rifles, batons of both empires, and a ring of flickering sigils on the walls, little golden lights that blink like watchful eyes. A pulse of silence throbs in the air, heavy as any shackles. Commander Ryland Dane, stoic in his dark uniform, never lets his gaze waver from the tall, lithe woman before him. She is General Saris Veyrak, the alien who felled entire armies with a sweep of her hand and claimed him as her trophy. Neither moves. Neither speaks. Their shadows, cast by the overhead glow, stretch across the chamber's segmented floor. He draws a slow breath, steeling himself. She tilts her head almost imperceptibly, the faintest glow pulsing at the raised patterns along her neck. Alien, impossibly poised, she studies him like a raptor. Her eyes, shifting hues of violet and cyan, reflect the overhead lights. A tense hush drags on, and the air in the chamber crackles with menace. Then, with a single step forward, her armor plating whispers against itself. Her lips part as if she can taste his defiance in the air. She waits a heartbeat longer, one more moment of unspoken tension. "Down on your knees," she finally commands, each word sliding across the distance. "Submit, and your suffering will be lessened." He doesn't flinch. He doesn't blink. He remains precisely where he is, his uniform still smeared with the dust of destroyed battlefronts. His response comes after a deliberate pause, his deep voice quiet but cutting. "I'd rather die on my feet than beg at yours." Saris narrows her gaze. It's as if she expected this answer but still finds pleasure in hearing it. Her hand lifts, revealing long, gloved fingers with subtle ridges, her species-unique physiology. The slender digits hover near his shoulder, not quite touching, but close enough that Ryland can sense the heat emanating from her. His reflex is to tense, but he subdues it. The ring of battered weapons around them stands as a testament to the violence that brought them here. A pair of alien guards flanks the chamber, silent as statues. They glare at Ryland, waiting for a chance to pummel him into submission. Saris signals them off with a minute gesture, a slow curling of her fingers. She wants him alive, unbroken, and she wants him to see exactly who holds control. He can read that desire in her measured stance, the slightest upward tilt of her chin. Moments ago, the vessel they are on, her command ship, had resonated with the triumphal roar of her victory. The last human outpost in this sector fell under her legion's unstoppable push. He alone remains upright, a vestige of the resistance. His world, his people, what is left of them, are all either in shackles or scattered. Now, with everything lost, he's brought before her a trophy. A prize. Her latest demonstration of superiority. "Your arrogance is almost admirable," she murmurs, taking another step around him. She studies him as if evaluating whether he is more useful as a showpiece or some twisted plaything. The lights from the consoles glint across the lines of her fitted alien uniform, accentuating her lean strength. Not many men stay so rigid when confronted by their new mistress. Ryland's voice remains steady. "You're no mistress of mine." He hears a rustle behind him. The guards shift their weight, preparing to strike. Saris raises her hand again, wordlessly commanding them to hold. She wants to savor the moment. The tension swirling in the war chamber is thick, and Ryland feels his heart hammer behind his ribs. But he controls it, hides it behind the same impassive mask he's used on countless battlefields. She takes her time circling him, slow steps echoing on the smooth floor. Her gaze drags across every inch of him, from the short cropped hair at the crown of his head to the battered boots scuffing the pristine panels. She finally halts in front of him, close enough that he catches the subdued scent that clings to her, a mix of something metallic, almost electric, and a floral note that is slightly sweet. His senses prickle. He has fought her kind in the field, seen them tear men apart in seconds, but never has he been so near to one of their generals. He can practically feel the hum of her presence. She motions abruptly, and the two guards step forward to tear the uniform jacket from him. Ryland lunges to resist, but there are too many hands restraining him. A swift blow to the back of his knee forces him downward. He lands hard, breath hissed through his teeth. For a second, he sees her smirk. It's not triumphant but more curious. As though his defiance is an unexpected twist in a battle she was certain she had already won. When the guards force him back onto his feet, panting from pain and anger, Cerys lifts her chin. Come with me. Or should we continue this display on the floor before all who serve me? His glare could melt steel. Lead the way, he says. She crosses to the chamber door. It spirals open without so much as a whisper of mechanics. The hallway beyond flickers with emergency lights. He hears shouts, the scrape of boots on metal. Something off-kilter in her warship. She stiffens, hearing it too. Then she beckons. The guards push Rylan forward, but he manages to stay on his feet, refusing to stumble or show weakness. Together, they leave the war chamber, stepping into a corridor shaped by curving, organic design. The walls pulsate with lines of alien text and subtle lighting. They move past a row of reinforced windows where Rylan catches glimpses of the starfield outside. The planet below is dark, scattered with pockets of smoldering ruin from the last bombardment. Human territory used to thrive there. His territory. His anger flares, but he keeps it locked tight behind his stoic exterior. The corridor leads them deeper, into a labyrinth of crossways and sealed hatches. Cerys navigates with the confidence of someone who knows this ship inside out. A dull rumble shivers through the deck plating. For a second, they halt. The overhead lights flicker again. It's enough to deepen the lines of concern on Cerys's brow. She swipes a clawed fingertip over a panel embedded in the wall, scanning status updates. A string of alien glyphs flash red and orange. Then an alarm screeches, one of the high-pitched klaxon blasts that sends adrenaline knifing through Rylan's gut. The guards stiffen. Cerys's posture turns more rigid. She gives a terse command in her language that Rylan can't fully interpret, but from the way her subordinates scramble, he understands something has gone wrong, something big. Another violent tremor rocks the corridor. Metal beams creak overhead. Cerys directs the guards with clipped instructions. They disperse, leaving her alone with Rylan in the flickering hallway. The overhead lights sputter in and out, painting her in strobing shadows. She turns on him, eyes lit with an intensity that cuts through the gloom. You will stay by my side, she says. Whether as a shield or a bargaining chip, I haven't decided. But you will not die on me yet. Her tone drips with superiority, but he senses a thread of uncertainty. He sets his jaw. What's happening? Traitors. Or perhaps an external attack. Does it matter? I will handle it. She gestures imperiously. Move. She steps forward, and he follows. Not like a tame creature, but one forced to accompany her. Though she tries to remain stoic, every blast from deeper in the ship sets her on edge. The warship's corridors become a war zone of their own, pillars of steam hiss from ruptured pipes, and the lights continue to fail. Alarms bleat in multiple frequencies, forming a chaotic chorus. The hum of the engines modulates, as if parts of the vessel are no longer responding to commands. They come upon a crossing where an armed squad of her soldiers kneels behind a half-lowered blast door, exchanging gunfire with another group wearing similar uniforms but marked with a different insignia. An internal mutiny. In the midst of it all, energy bolts scorch the walls and bounce off metallic crates. The smell of scorched metal saturates the air. Cerys raises a hand, and the loyal squad captain nods to her. She throws a cold glance at Rylan. Stand back. Before he can scoff, she's already lunging forward, firing a wrist-mounted emitter. A sizzling column of violet-hued plasma rips through the corridor, forcing the opposing side to scatter. Rylan takes cover behind a nearby panel, watching with grudging admiration as Cerys moves with lethal grace. Her subordinates pour supporting fire around her. She never flinches, never hesitates, and within moments the traitors lie sprawled on the floor, smoking from direct hits. Rylan stands, stepping through the smoke and sparks. She focuses on him, chest rising and falling with the rush of battle. Through his own haze of adrenaline, he meets her gaze. A storm of alien eyes and raw power. For an instant, neither speaks. The corridor reeks of ozone, and the hum of damaged systems sets his teeth on edge. A distant explosion rocks the deck, and overhead lights cut out completely. Everything plunges into darkness except for the faint glow of Ceres's bioluminescent markings. They pulse around her throat and collarbones with each breath, creating an almost hypnotic pattern. In the flashes, Rylan sees her face, strangely beautiful, flushed with victory and tension. A trickle of sweat or perhaps alien equivalent glistens at her temple. She hisses a quick order to her squad, then refocuses on Rylan. "We'll find a secured location. Move!" She's halfway to him, eyes flicking between the carnage and the corridor beyond. "Don't try to run. You won't get far." He lifts a brow, refusing to show fear. "Not running." It comes out unbidden. He should hate her, and he does, yet something about her presence draws him in. There's a raw magnetism, as though the two of them exist in a vacuum of intensity that dulls everything else. Ceres snaps her fingers. The squad forms around them, creating a protective wedge. The group advances down the corridor, stepping over traitor corpses still smoking from plasma burns. They round a corner, then another, weaving through half-collapsed passageways. Her subordinates bark quick updates in the alien tongue. Rylan catches bits of meaning: sabotage, critical damage, infiltration. It's not just an internal power play, it's an attack that leaves them vulnerable from outside, too. A klaxon wail intensifies, echoing from metallic walls. The overhead flickers come back on, revealing a large hatchway at the end of the corridor. Ceres checks a panel. The glyphs indicate that beyond lies some sealed command center. She barks an order, but the door stutters halfway open, jamming with a metallic screech. At once, Rylan and two alien soldiers move to pry it open further. They strain, muscles cording. It's enough to let everyone slip inside one by one. In the command center, monitors line the walls, offering fractured glimpses of the warship's critical systems. Sparks sizzle from an overloading console. One of the alien technicians lies slumped in a corner, a red smear trailing from her position to the base of a station. This mutiny has left no part of the vessel unscathed. Ceres strides to the central console. Her bioluminescent markings flare as she tries to stabilize the system with quick key presses. Rylan stands a few paces behind her, watchful. The squad checks the corners, stepping over debris to secure the perimeter. With a frustrated hiss, she slams her hand against the console, making a cluster of lights flicker on and off. "This isn't possible," she spits. "My ship is compromised to the core." Rylan's voice cuts the tension. "Then find an escape route. Or keep fighting a losing battle here until you have no crew left." She rounds on him. "You think I'm going to cut and run from my own ship?" He sets his jaw. "You want to stay on a sinking warship, that's your call. But if it's so severely damaged, it can be salvaged," she insists, turning back to the console. "I've spent years conquering entire systems with this vessel. I will not let it be destroyed by a handful of traitors." She hits another panel, and the overhead screens flicker. Schematics of the vessel appear, large sections in red. "They've rigged charges near the power core, and external forces are bombarding us. We have an hour before containment fails completely, if that." He glances at the screen. "You're going to lose it, whether you want to or not." She presses her lips tight, ignoring him. One of her soldiers tries to input commands, but the system rejects them. Ceres's fury is palpable. Her eyes flick dangerously, as though her mind is racing for solutions. After a tense moment, she turns to him, and her expression transforms. No longer pure rage, something sharper, cunning. "You're going to help me secure the power core," she says. "If we stabilize it, we still have a chance to regain control. Otherwise, the entire ship will blow to pieces, and neither of us will survive." He crosses his arms, ignoring the throbbing pain in his shoulder. "Oh, now you want my help?" A muscle in her jaw twitches. "Don't delude yourself. If you die here, I lose a valuable trophy, and a chance at using your battlefield knowledge." So yes, I want your help. She lifts her chin. Are you going to posture, or are you going to help save our lives? His nostrils flare. Part of him wants to refuse, to laugh in her face. But something in her tone suggests that if he doesn't comply, she'll find a way to make him. And if the ship truly is on the edge of destruction, his defiance won't accomplish anything. Fine, he says. But only because I don't plan on dying in an alien explosion. She doesn't smile, but he senses a flicker of satisfaction. Let's move, she tells her soldiers. They regroup, some battered, some limping, but all determined. It's clear that no matter her iron will, Saris is facing a crisis from which she might not emerge victorious. She tries to hide it, but there's a certain tension in the set of her shoulders that wasn't there before. They push deeper into the bowels of the ship. Each corridor grows darker, more cluttered with debris. Atmosphere flickers in and out of regulation. Some vents pour acrid smoke that stings their eyes, forcing them to breathe shallowly. Others have temperature fluctuations that raise or lower the ambient heat by several degrees in seconds, a sure sign that the vessel's systems are failing catastrophically. At one junction, they find a group of traders hacking into a primary control panel. Immediately, weapons are drawn, and a firefight erupts in a blaze of plasma bolts. Rylan, forced to stay close to Saris, notices how she wades into the fray with lethal elegance. One of her subordinates goes down under a barrage of energy pulses. Rylan grabs the soldier's dropped rifle, adrenaline surging through him, and opens fire in tandem with Saris's loyalists. His marksmanship is precise, honed from years of war. When the dust settles, the smell of scorched alien flesh hangs in the air, and the last of the traitors slumps over. Saris casts him a sharp glance, catching the rifle in his hands. He half expects her to rip it away, but she doesn't. Instead, she inclines her head, just a fraction. You want me armed? He asks, voice taut. You fight better than half my soldiers, she replies, breath ragged. Keep it. But don't let me regret it. Before he can retort, she's already turning away, leading them onward. He follows, mind still reeling from how quickly he's gone from prisoner to reluctant ally. This forced partnership is a fragile arrangement, one that might shatter if either side sees the slightest advantage. But in this moment, amid flickering lights and the thunder of internal explosions, either has a choice. They reach a sealed doorway leading to engineering access. Saris tries to open it with a palm scan, but the panel beeps with the denial. Gritting her teeth, she slams the side of her fist against it, then starts keying in override commands. Rylan notices the frustration etched on her features, the faint glow of her markings intensifying as her emotions spike. Stand back, he says abruptly, pushing her aside. She starts to snarl at him, but he's already dropped to a knee, prying the casing off the control panel. He's tinkered with alien tech enough on the battlefield to know a few backdoor ways to short-circuit locks. Sparks dance across his fingertips as he crosses two wires. The door slides open halfway. Saris's eyes flash with a complicated emotion, part surprise, part wary respect. He doesn't linger on it. He shoulders the rifle and ducks through the gap, scanning for threats. The engineering corridor beyond is a winding passage lined with cables overhead and beneath transparent plating, lit by a sickly green glow. The hum of the power core resonates through the walls, accompanied by an intermittent crackle that suggests damage. Her soldiers fan out, weapons ready, as they enter. The corridor splits in multiple directions. One of her subordinates tries to check a navigation panel, but it's offline. Saris gestures for the squad to stay back, then nods at Rylan. They move side by side, albeit warily, deeper into the labyrinth. Every so often, they pass windows revealing glimpses of massive cylindrical structures that must be the power conduits, each flickering with arcs of alien energy. The deeper they go, the more the walls tremble under the stress. Overhead fixtures shake loose, crashing behind them with sparks and metal clangs. Rylan's voice is low when he finally speaks. You knew this was an unstable design, didn't you? She spares him a sidelong glance. It's not unstable. It's powerful. But if you allow sabotage in the wrong place, he exhales sharply, then you get this. Their progress is slow. At each corner, they brace for ambush, and Ryland tries not to dwell on how bizarre it feels to be cooperating with an alien general who has ravaged his people. Yet as they continue, he catches sidelong glimpses of her posture, always alert, calculating, but maybe uncertain, too. She's wearing her confidence like armor, but cracks form around the edges. She can't be entirely sure of success here. A half-collapsed door ahead blocks their progress. Sarah signals one of her soldiers, who kneels to plant a small charge. They detonate the debris, clearing the path. A swirl of smoke and dust envelopes them. In the chaos, Ryland feels a hand clamp around his forearm. He stiffens, half expecting an attack, but it's Saris, yanking him aside as a massive metal support beam topples from the ceiling. It slams where he stood a second before, sending shards of paneling in every direction. He realizes she's just saved him. Her grip lingers on his arm, strong and hot through the fabric. He meets her gaze in the swirling dust. He can't quite read the expression in those ever-shifting eyes. It's as though she's as startled by her own action as he is. She releases him abruptly, turning away with a tense set to her jaw. The next corridor takes them to a wide, circular chamber deep within the ship's belly. Machinery thrums all around, cables snaking across the floor. In the center stands the main power core, a towering column of energy swirling in a translucent cylinder. But half the protective shielding is missing, and arcs of violet current flick along the sides, scorching the metal and sending out pulses of heat. Saris curses under her breath in her alien language. The sabotage is clear. Entire panels have been ripped out or overloaded. Wires dangle in a tangled mess, and the control station is shot to hell. Sparks pop in a staccato rhythm. The entire chamber resonates with the cyclical surge of energy near meltdown. If this goes, the entire ship is done for. She strides to a side console, barking orders to her soldiers. Stabilize the lower vents, reroute coolant lines. Quickly! They scramble, flipping open compartments to access manual valves. Ryland moves around the perimeter, scanning for additional sabotage or threats. Adrenaline thrums in his veins, fueling him through the exhaustion creeping up on him. Outwardly, he maintains composure. Saris works feverishly, adjusting alien readouts. Her luminous markings flicker as her emotional state remains high. Eventually, she jabs at the console, venting frustration. I can't do this alone. One of you. She stops, eyes locking onto Ryland. You have some knowledge of this technology, yes? From your years fighting us? He nods stiffly, stepping up to the console. I've sabotaged it, not fixed it. Reverse sabotage then, she snaps. Quickly. The meltdown is approaching. If you fail, we'll both be reduced to atoms. He can't help a bitter chuckle. No pressure. Yet a part of him comes alive in the challenge. It's something to do besides stand around waiting to die. His mind leaps into problem-solving mode. The readouts are partially in her language, partially intuitive from his experience. He tries rerouting a coolant loop, scanning the lines of code for obvious malicious commands. She hovers at his shoulder, scanning the same readouts, occasionally adjusting something. Their faces are inches apart. He can sense her heat, the soft hiss of her breath, the alien tang of her presence. But they're both focused on preventing catastrophe, so either acknowledges the closeness. Time becomes a blur of code cables, sweat trickling down temples, and stifled curses in two different languages. Soldiers around them scramble to hold off bursts of plasma or to reposition broken coolant rods. The power core's pulses grow more erratic, the arcs snapping louder, scorching the chamber walls. Alarms ring incessantly. Finally, Ryland sees a measure of success in the readout. The meltdown curve flattens, though not by much. He toggles a final override, re-engaging some backup failsafe. With a groan, the swirling energy within the cylinder stabilizes ever so slightly. Enough to buy them time, perhaps. Saris exhales, tension in her shoulders easing a fraction. It's not enough to save the ship, she mutters. But we've delayed the explosion. If we can quell the mutiny and isolate the sabotage, we might restore. Her words die away as a harsh screech blasts through the comm systems overhead. A voice, presumably belonging to the traitor leader, rips through in the alien tongue, mocking her. She responds with a hiss, stepping to another console. Whatever the traitors just broadcast, it has her furious. She glances at Rylan, as though deciding how much to divulge. "They're threatening to jettison critical systems if I don't surrender," she says through clenched teeth. "They'll vent the atmosphere on multiple decks. My loyal soldiers, and you, will die while they escape on drop ships." He meets her gaze. "Negotiating with terrorists. Good luck." "I don't negotiate," she snaps, striding toward the exit. "We're going to drive them out. And you're going to help me do it." Before he can retort that he's not her soldier, another tremor shakes the chamber. A cascade of sparks showers them from an overhead conduit. He ducks, raising an arm to shield himself. She presses a hand to the side of his face, steering him away from danger. For a moment their eyes lock. Something flickers between them, conflict, adrenaline, a surge of awareness. But the moment is gone as soon as the sparks subside. They exit the chamber, pushing onward with a handful of her troops. The corridor beyond is strewn with fresh debris. It's a labyrinth of shifting shadows and dangerous vantage points. At the first intersection, they run into more traitors, but the ensuing exchange of gunfire is brief. The Loyalists, under Sarissa's cold-eyed command, deliver lethal efficiency. Rylan picks off 2 traitors with shots to their center mass, an echo of the old human battles where he was unstoppable. The flush of victory is tempered by the awareness that he is, for the moment, fighting alongside the very empire he once swore to destroy. They approach a large hangar bay, the place that many traitors might be aiming for as they attempt to flee. En route, the group halts at a security station. Through a viewport, Rylan sees chaos, small craft fueling up, soldiers forming ranks. The mutineers have established a perimeter of defensive turrets. The lighting is erratic, and everything is cloaked in swirling dust from overhead damage. A standoff is already in progress, with pockets of Loyalists trying to push forward from the far side. Sarissa's eyes narrow. She gestures for her squad to take defensive positions behind a half-wall of machinery. She motions Rylan over, conferring in low tones. "We push through, neutralize their defenses, and disable their ships. We end this mutiny." He glances at the formidable display of heavy weapons. "That's not a simple push. They've got enough firepower to take out an entire platoon." Her expression hardens. "Then we strike fast. You and I lead the charge. My soldiers will flank them. We overwhelm them before they can react. Are you ready?" He lifts the rifle. "I don't see much choice." Saris allows a slow exhale. There's no time for further planning. She signals her troops. One leaps up to lob a concussive grenade into the hangar, and the explosion rips through the near defenses. Bolts of plasma screech back, scarring the walls. In that split second, Saris vaults the makeshift barrier, alien reflexes propelling her forward in a deadly sprint. Rylan curses under his breath and follows, adrenaline blazing through his veins. They plunge into the storm of chaos. Light blasts everywhere, turrets spitting bursts of energy, stray shots from traitors, the glow of emergency beacons. Rylan aims and fires, dropping one rebel after another, forced to keep pace with Saris as she cuts a path. A stray bolt sings past his shoulder, sizzling the air. She spins, her armor shedding sparks as she counters with her wrist-mounted emitter, vaporizing a turret operator in a flash of purple plasma. At the heart of the hangar, the traitors regroup. Their leader, a tall alien wearing a distinctive shoulder crest, shouts commands. Another barrage of gunfire tears through the Loyalist flank. Rylan and Saris duck behind a cargo crate, panting. He checks his rifle's charge. Nearly depleted. She gestures for him to hold, then she leans out, unleashing a sustained volley that forces the traitors to scatter. Rylan glances at her. Even in the thick of combat, there's a savage grace in the way her eyes flick with determination, her posture never faltering. He can't deny the electrified pull that hums between them. They're on opposite sides of a war, but in this moment, They move as one relentless force, unstoppable and driven. His weapon whines as it nears depletion. "Cover me!" he shouts. She nods curtly, rising to lay down covering fire. He sprints to a downed rebel, scooping up an extra power cell. When he slaps it into place, his rifle hums back to lethal potential. He spins, firing across the hangar, dropping one of the traitors who was charging at Ceres from behind. She whirls, sees the threat neutralized, and nods in acknowledgement. The overhead lights flicker again, intensifying the sense of urgency. The starfield visible through the flickering hangar shield shows enemy ships outside, launching sporadic blasts that rattle the hull. They're running out of time. If this battle drags on, the entire vessel might implode or be incinerated from the outside. Ceres motions to her loyalists, and they spread out, flanking the entrenched traitors. Rylan fires at a cluster of them, forcing them to duck. Ceres darts forward like a streak of black and gold lightning, her hand flaring with an energy blade that slices through the nearest opponent's weapon and then his chest. She moves with ruthless precision, unstoppable. Her momentum nearly carries her into the open line of fire from the traitor leader, who levels a heavy plasma cannon in her direction. Rylan sees it happen in a split second. Without thinking, he lunges, shoulder-checking her out of the path. The cannon's discharge lights up the air, scorching a smoking line across the deck. They tumble behind a crate together. Her eyes flash wide, and for a moment, they stare at each other, breath ragged. He can feel her heart pounding beneath her armor, or perhaps it's his own throbbing in his ears. The tension is electric. She says nothing, but in that fleeting instant, there's raw intensity between them. Then they break apart, focusing back on survival. She peers around the corner, hisses in frustration. The traitor leader has pinned down their flank, preventing the loyalists from making a final push. The hangar is an inferno of ricocheting blasts. Ceres glances at Rylan. He reads the silent message in her expression. They need to take out that leader, or everything falls apart. He nods. Together, they break cover. He fires a volley to draw the traitor's aim, while she slides in low, launching a dagger-like projectile that crackles with alien energy. It lodges in the rebel's cannon just as he tries to fire. The resulting explosion knocks him backward, slamming him into a shipping container. He lands hard and doesn't move again. With their leader gone, the remaining traitors falter. The loyalists swarm in, overwhelming them. It's not bloodless. Bodies litter the hangar floor, smoke billows in sheets, and several craft burn in blazing wrecks. But soon, the last rebel surrenders. A ragged cheer goes up from the loyalists. Ceres stands over the fallen mutineer leader, chest heaving, the savage triumph in her eyes barely contained. Rylan steadies himself, the firefight's adrenaline still coursing hot. He casts a critical eye across the battlefield. She's won back control of this section, but the damage to the warship is dire. One of her subordinates limps forward, pressing a hand to a wound. Ceres spares a quick glance at him, then shifts her focus to Rylan. For a drawn-out second, there's an odd hush between them, despite the distant clang of failing machinery. She nods once, a stiff gesture that acknowledges his role in this victory. Her eyes linger on him, scanning his face as if trying to unravel the contradiction he represents. A man who was her sworn enemy, now fighting at her side. If the situation were different, if they weren't in the midst of a crumbling warship, maybe that tension would come to a head right here. Instead, she breaks the silent moment with a curt order to her troops. While they begin clearing the fallen and securing the area, she moves closer to Rylan. There's a fine film of dust and sweat on her cheeks, and her armor bears scorch marks from near hits. Despite the wear, she radiates an aura of unyielding command. "Come with me," she says quietly, less in order than before, but still carrying the ring of dominance. "We'll find a secure position to regroup. The threat isn't over." He matches her gaze. "I don't take orders from you." She smirks, the edge of her mouth curling. "In that case, stay close on your own free will. But I'll kill you if you try to run." He exhales a humorless laugh. "Fine. Let on." They maneuver through the battered corridors again, smaller clusters of rebels still surfacing, though most are quickly neutralized by loyalist squads. The entire ship lurches, and an ear-splitting alarm chimes in sets of 3. She mutters a curse. Ryland recognizes the tone of it, impending meltdown or total structural failure. They all need to get off this vessel, or fix it for real, fast. Over her wrist comm, Saris demands a status update. One of her lieutenants responds that critical reactor coolant lines remain sabotaged, but the meltdown is slowed. Another voice crackles that the external bombardment has ceased. Whoever attacked from outside likely decided not to risk getting caught in the explosion. The battered warship is drifting in space, silent to the rest of the Starfield's watchers, no rescue in sight. For better or worse, they're on their own. Ryland glances at Saris as they walk. He can't shake the feeling that their fates are now tied. If this ship goes, he goes, and so does she. For all her power and arrogance, she's as vulnerable as he is. The knowledge forms a knot in his stomach. Despite the pain of everything he's lost, he can't help but feel a grudging respect, maybe even a hint of reluctant admiration, for her unbroken spirit. They find a functional side chamber sealed off from the main corridors. Once inside, her squad sets up a temporary command post. Saris paces in front of a battered display panel, conferring with her officers. Ryland leans against the wall, ignoring the ache in his muscles, rifle resting at his side. He can't stop his gaze from drifting to her. There's something about the way she carries herself, like a gravitational pull. As she addresses her remaining troops, the tension in the room simmers. Some of them watch him with hostile eyes, clearly resenting that a human stands among them. But she holds up a hand to quell any protest. For the moment, no one speaks out of turn. They have bigger problems. "Central corridor is ours," she says. "The hangar is secure. Now we must decide whether to abandon ship or attempt repairs. The meltdown will become unstoppable if we can't fully restore coolant flow." She glances at Ryland. "Would you prefer to flee in an escape vessel? That seems to be the easier choice for you." He meets her stare. "I'd prefer not to die in an explosion. But if we run, then you lose everything. This entire ship is your seat of power, right?" She stiffens, indignation sparking in her eyes. "It's more than that. This vessel is a symbol. If it's destroyed, then my dominion over the conquered territories will fracture." He lets the weight of those words hang for a second. "Then you can't let it go." She exhales, glancing around at her battered troops. "No. We can't. Our only hope is to restore full power to the coolant system. If we succeed, I can rally reinforcements. This mutiny can be crushed. The Empire, my Empire, remains unshaken." Her arrogance chafes him, but at the same time, he hears the raw conviction beneath it. She's not letting go of that authority without a fight. One of her soldiers steps forward, explaining the location of the meltdown control station is heavily damaged. They'd have to suit up, move through a partially depressurized sector, and do it manually. It's practically a suicide mission. Saris scowls, turning toward Ryland. "You're coming with me. You've proven you can handle yourself. And you might know ways around sabotage that my own men don't." He lifts a brow. "You sure you trust me?" She crosses her arms, armor scraping. "I don't trust you. But I need your skills." A beat of tense quiet. Then she adds, softly enough that only he hears, "And you're resilient. I value that." His chest feels oddly tight at the near compliment. He's not used to hearing anything from her except threats or commands. She gestures for her soldiers to prep environmental suits and gather the necessary repair tools. The group disperses, leaving the two of them in the center of the chamber. For a moment, it's just them, the flickering overhead lights painting them in stark relief. "Any second thoughts?" she asks. He shakes his head slowly, uncertain what compels him to speak so frankly. "No point in second thoughts. We're in this until the end." She tilts her head, the luminous markings on her neck pulsing faintly. "Yes," she says, almost to herself. "Until the end." The next stretch of corridors feels like an entirely different ship. Environmental systems are failing, leaving them in near darkness with random spots of intense heat or cold. Clouds of coolant vapor drift through certain passages, mixing with the acrid smoke that lingers from earlier firefights. Most of the rebellious faction has been put down or captured, but the sabotage runs deep. They encounter multiple sealed doors with jammed controls. Saris and Rylan, with the help of a few loyalists, manage to pry or blast their way through. At last they reach a pressurized airlock that leads to the compromised sector near the meltdown controls. The door's status panel flashes red, indicating near vacuum conditions on the other side. The soldiers distribute breathing apparatuses and seal their suits. Rylan struggles into the alien gear they hand him, adjusting it to fit his broader human frame. He feels Saris's gaze as she checks the seals on his collar. It's a methodical gesture, but he can't ignore the proximity, the soft brush of her gloved fingertips against his neck. She says nothing, but he senses the change in the air between them. It's a living, pulsing thing, a tension that has been building since their first clash. Now, under dire circumstances, it intensifies. He wonders if she's even aware that her markings glow a shade brighter when she's near him. One of her soldiers opens the inner hatch. A rush of air escapes, followed by the eerie silence of the damaged sector. They move forward slowly, footsteps crunching on debris. The corridor walls have ruptured in places, revealing the cold void beyond. A faint shimmer of the emergency force field keeps them from being sucked out into space, but not all of it is stable. They press on, checking each door. Steam drifts in lazy plumes. Flickers of distant starlight poke through rent metal. Ahead, the meltdown control station sits behind a reinforced barrier. The overhead lighting is shot, so they rely on the glow of helmet lamps. Wires hang like vines from the ceiling. The meltdown station itself is a cluster of consoles around a thick, insulated pipe that presumably channels coolant into the heart of the reactor. Rylan spots multiple explosive charges still affixed to the apparatus, though some look damaged. If these triggers go off, it'll rupture the line beyond repair. They have precious minutes to defuse them. Saris tries to input commands at the nearest console, but it remains unresponsive. She gestures for her men to begin disarming the bombs. Rylan carefully navigates the twisted metal, making his way to another console. He wipes away the dust and shattered glass from its panel, then powers it up with a manual override. A swirl of alien glyphs tries to load on the cracked screen. He mutters a curse, scanning the interface. The sabotage is layered, sophisticated. He's no engineer, but he's gleaned enough from the battlefield to attempt a patch. Saris arrives at his side. She points to a tangled portion of code, her luminous eyes narrowing. He realizes she's found the backdoor the rebels used. They work in tandem to isolate it, reroute critical lines, and hopefully restore control. All around them, the warship groans. Another overhead explosion makes the metal quiver. The partial vacuum outside tugs at a fractured panel, tearing it free. A wind tunnel effect whips through the corridor, scattering debris. One of the soldiers loses footing, but Saris whips out a hand, the other soldier grabbing on, creating a chain. They anchor him before he's hurled into the barrier field. Rylan clings to the console, heart hammering in his chest. Saris sets her jaw, focusing back on the sabotage. Each keystroke on the console resonates with urgency. Her eyes flick to Rylan's screen, verifying the changes. He can feel the tension in her body, the rapidness of her breath through the suit's speakers. If they fail, the meltdown will blow. If they succeed, the battered warship might hold together just long enough to limp to safer territory. Suddenly, the panel registers partial success. Rylan sees a green line on the display. Saris quickly toggles it. The coolant valve engages. In the corridor behind them, coolant rods begin to slide into position, locking with a series of mechanical thuds. The temperature around them drops. She breathes a small sigh of relief, just as a shrill alarm blasts from the unexploded charges. The sabotage code includes a failsafe that arms them if the meltdown procedure is reversed. "Bombs!" shouts one of the alien soldiers. They scramble for the charges. It's a race against time. The readout on Ryland's screen shows a rapid countdown in alien numerals. 30 seconds. 29. Saris whips around, scanning the corridor for the cluster of charges. 2 of her men are already bent over them, trying to disarm them, but the mechanism is complex. Ryland shoves away from the console, almost slips on debris, but regains his balance. He slides up beside the nearest bomb, prying open a panel to expose the wiring. Another soldier hovers with trembling hands. "Hurry!" Saris hisses. "We have less than half a minute." Ryland's heart pounds. He's defused bombs before, but never alien ones with this many redundant triggers. The countdown glows an ominous purple. He tries one wire. Sparks crackle. The next wire draws a hiss of static. The clock hits 15. Saris curses, moving to the other set of charges to do the same, but the wiring scheme is even more complicated. 10 seconds. He feels sweat bead along his spine. Another wire, more sparks. The numbers drop to 7, 6. A single bead of sweat slides down his temple. This next wire, he's almost sure it's the power feed. He cuts it, praying he's not about to set it off prematurely. A sharp pop, and the readout on the small screen sputters. He braces for an explosion. Instead, it goes dark at 3 seconds. The LED flickers, and the bomb's charging hum winds down into silence. He exhales sharply, heart hammering so loud he can barely hear. Saris manages to disable the second set at the last possible instant, leaving both bombs inert. The corridor fills with their shaky breathing. One soldier slumps against the wall in relief. Another collapses to his knees, the adrenaline crash hitting him like a wave. Then the entire system around them rumbles, this time not from sabotage, but from a final realignment. The coolant rods hum to full capacity, and the meltdown alarm ceases. Through the battered overhead speakers, a steady tone replaces the klaxon. They've stabilized the reactor. The warship won't explode after all. For a moment, there's silence among them except for the hiss of failing atmospheric circulation. Saris stares at Ryland, eyes wide. The tension that had coiled in every muscle unwinds, and a wave of intense relief ripples through her posture. She straightens, stepping across the debris-littered floor to him. He rises from his crouch, shoulders tight, breathing ragged. They're face to face, the suit visors reflecting each other's anxious expressions. "You did it," she murmurs. "We did it." He offers a curt nod. "Looks like we live another day." She inclines her head, stepping closer. Even through the suit, he senses her body heat, the energy that radiates from her. Their shared survival saturates the air with a potent mix of adrenaline and something else. He feels it in every shallow breath, every tingling nerve. She lifts a hand, fingertips grazing his visor, leaving a faint smear of dust behind. Before either can say more, a soldier's voice cuts in, breathless. "General, the meltdown is contained. The traitors are all but subdued. What are your orders?" She hesitates, blinking as she reorients. "We restore atmosphere, secure the wounded, and re-establish command. Contact our outer patrols. Let them know this ship stands." The soldier nods and rushes off. Saris and Ryland remain, poised in the near darkness. He can't tell if it's the near-death situation that makes the space between them feel electric, or if it's something deeper. Every muscle in his body aches, and the weight of everything that's happened, his capture, the battles, the sabotage, presses on him. But underneath that, an undeniable pull toward her thrums. They move back through the corridor, sealing the airlock behind them. The slow process of repressurizing begins. When they finally remove the environmental suits, stepping into a more stable part of the ship, the difference in temperature and air quality is staggering. Soldiers hurry back and forth, checking systems, clearing away debris. The once immaculate warship is scarred, battered, and partially crippled. But alive. Saris stops in a corridor near a flickering overhead lamp. She peels off a cracked chest plate, exposing the underlayer of her armor, and draws a shaky breath. The luminous lines across her throat and shoulders pulsate in erratic patterns. It must be a sign of exhaustion or the after-effects of intense stress. Rylan can't help staring at them, fascinated by how her body displays emotion she tries so hard to conceal. He expects her to resume barking orders, but for an instant she closes her eyes. In the dim corridor, with only a few loyal soldiers milling around at a distance, she seems less like an untouchable general and more like a warrior barely holding herself together. Her chest rises and falls slowly. Then she snaps her eyes open, remembering who she is and who stands before her. She straightens, voice regaining its authority. We should get to the command center. I need to confirm the final status of the rebellion. And you. She trails off, as if unsure how to classify him now. He was her prisoner, her trophy. But after saving her ship, the lines are blurred. Don't worry, he says, voice low. I'm not going to run off. There's nowhere to go. She just nods, gestures for him to follow, and leads him through a series of winding passages. When they reach the command center, the place is in chaos. Technicians trying to restore full power, wounded soldiers propped up against walls. Consoles fizzle and spark. Saris strides to the main station. A battered lieutenant salutes, reporting that the traitors have either been killed or surrendered in pockets throughout the vessel. At least one group jettison themselves in pods, leaving the rest behind. Rylan stands back, scanning the disorder. He's unsure where he belongs in this new dynamic. The warship remains Saris's domain, and he's still, in many ways, her prisoner. Yet now the entire crew sees him armed, standing near their general, no chains, no sign of subjugation. Some scowl. Others eye him with thinly masked contempt or curiosity. After issuing a series of brisk orders, Saris turns to him. Her voice is pitched low so only he can hear. This rebellion is quelled, but the damage is substantial. We'll limp back to a secure outpost for major repairs. Until then, we're stuck together. He arches a brow. So the plan is to keep me under guard until we reach wherever you're going? She hesitates. For a moment, her gaze shifts over him with an odd intensity. I still intend to present you as my conquest. But your value has changed. You're more than just a spoil of war. He stiffens. A surge of conflicting emotions ripples through him. Anger, a flash of old hatred, confusion. Don't think for a second that I've forgotten what you and your empire did to my people. A flicker of something crosses her face. Regret? Irritation? It's gone too fast to read. I don't expect you to forget. She touches a panel, scanning damage reports. But what's done is done. He scoffs under his breath. Easy for you to say. The air between them crackles with fresh tension. Then she gestures for him to follow her, moving away from the main station into a side corridor where technicians aren't crowding them. The walls here are scarred, overhead lights flickering spastically. Every now and then, a vent exhales a hiss of steam. They step into what appears to be a small briefing room. A single overhead light works, casting half the chamber in shadow. She shuts the door. He realizes with a jolt that they're alone. Her posture remains that of a commanding officer, but her breathing is still uneven. Perhaps she isn't as composed as she wants him to believe. Why did you save me out there? She demands suddenly, her voice echoing off the bare walls. Pushing me aside from the plasma cannon. You could have let it take me out. He searches her expression, sees a flicker of genuine curiosity. Reflex, he mutters. I'm a soldier. I see a threat, I move. It wasn't personal. She takes a step closer. The half-light catches the ridges along her cheekbones, the faint sheen of sweat near her temple. You lie. You think I can't sense it? Your body, your voice. You don't want to admit there might be something else at play. He tenses, heart pounding. You're imagining things. Am I? Her eyes glow with that shifting violet cyan intensity. She moves even closer, close enough that he can feel the heat radiating from her. You fought alongside me. Our hearts pounded together. I saw how you looked at me afterward, how your eyes lingered. His jaw clenches. You're the one who's confused. Just because you forced me into this doesn't mean I. She cuts him off by reaching forward, grabbing his collar. Not gently. Her grip is firm, a challenge, a test. He can't stop a low grunt from escaping his throat. She draws him closer, until her face is mere inches from his. He can smell her now, that electric metallic scent mixed with sweat and desperation. "Tell me," she breathes. "Do you hate me that much, or do you hate how you find me compelling?" He hates how his pulse jumps at her words. He loathes that she's forcing this confrontation when he's still raw from everything he's lost. But he can't deny the current between them. It's not gentle. It's not kind. It's a collision of two forces that won't back down. "You're twisted," he says quietly, the anger shaking in his voice. "You destroyed my world. And now you think I—" Her hand slides around the back of his neck. The ridges in her glove press into his skin. He feels an involuntary shudder race down his spine. She holds him there, breathing hard, the tension in her body telegraphing every accelerated heartbeat. A swirl of conflicting urges storms inside him: rage, defiance, a flicker of raw desire that he can't quite snuff out. "Then fight me," she whispers, eyes flashing. "Show me how much you hate me." He doesn't move for a breath, for two. Then he snaps, lunging forward, his hands finding her waist with enough force to bruise. She lets out a low sound, something between a gasp and a growl. Their lips clash, not gentle at all, it's a fierce, bruising contact. She's strong, meeting him with equal ferocity. It feels more like a battle than a kiss, a war for control. His hands tighten, and she arches, forcing him to press her against the wall. The overhead light flickers, casting them in alternating darkness and stark illumination. Her fingers curl into his hair, tugging hard enough that he snarls. It ignites a primal heat in his gut. Every inch of him is on fire, the lines between fury and craving blurred. They break apart for half a second, ragged breaths mingling. He sees her eyes blazing, her markings pulsing like a living tapestry of her arousal and anger. She seizes his collar again, dragging him back in. Their mouths clash, teeth grazing, mutual hostility fueling the moment. A faint alarm outside the briefing room reminds them that the ship is still in crisis. The thought sears through Ryland's mind, but he can't pull away. Not yet. They're lost in a conflagration of adrenaline and suppressed longing. Her armor is slick under his hands, his uniform half torn. Even now, pressed against the wall, she twists her hips, reversing their positions, pinning him. He counters, refusing to be overpowered, and slams his palm against the wall near her head. She emits a low, throaty chuckle at the display of dominance. Then the alarm intensifies, snapping them out of the heat. She glances sideways, lips parted, eyes wild. "We're not done," she murmurs, her voice thick, commanding, yet trembling with desire. He inhales, trying to quell the riot in his chest. The moment is so charged it's almost suffocating. She steps back, swallowing hard. The swirl of emotions on her face is almost impossible to parse. Then she squares her shoulders, tilts her chin up, and reopens the door. The hallway is ablaze with activity. A soldier calls out a frantic status update about structural integrity in the starboard quadrant. They part ways, rejoining the efforts to stabilize the warship. The next hours blur into a frenetic scramble, patching hull breaches, reactivating life support in multiple decks, rounding up the last of the mutineers. Saris and Rylan only exchange curt nods in passing, both consumed by the crisis at hand. Yet, every time their gazes lock, an undercurrent of that raw, unspoken hunger surfaces. Eventually, as the immediate danger recedes, Saris consolidates her command. Deck by deck, the warship is secured. Reinforcements arrive in smaller scout ships once it's deemed safe, providing additional manpower and medical assistance for the wounded. The battered vessel navigates slowly toward an outpost on the edge of alien-controlled space, a place where it can undergo extensive repairs. Saris remains in the command center, controlling the operation. Rylan finds himself under a form of house arrest, allowed to move freely on certain decks, but always under watchful guard. Strangely, none of her soldiers dare treat him like a prisoner in shackles. Perhaps they sense that their general has established a unique claim on him. He uses the time to rest, cleaning up in a supply closet that passes for a shower station. The mirror is cracked, but he can see the bruises forming on his neck and arms, not all from combat. He wonders if she wears similar marks. The thought stirs something in him: guilt, anger, and an unrelenting desire that won't die. A loyalist soldier, eyes full of suspicion, escorts him to a small bunk area. Ryland stretches out on the narrow cot, exhaustion pulling at every muscle. He tries to sleep, but memories of that savage, desperate kiss flood his mind. The press of her body, the taste of adrenaline on her lips, the half-snarl in her throat. He doesn't know whether to despise himself for wanting more or to curse her for igniting this need in him. In the dim overhead light, he stares at the ceiling, focusing on the dull hum of the engines. Sleep eventually drags him under, but it's a restless slumber haunted by half-formed dreams of cosmic battlefields and Ceres's glowing eyes. He wakes with a start when the door slides open. A soldier stands there, posture rigid. "The general summons you to her quarters," the soldier says. No explanation. Just an order. Ryland grimaces, rubbing sleep from his eyes. His entire body aches with the aftershocks of the day's violence. Without a word, he rises, straightens his disheveled uniform, and follows. They navigate a quieter section of the ship, signs of partial repair visible in the sealed breaches and flickering lights. He notices a couple of alien engineers welding a crack along a bulkhead, sparks flying in controlled arcs. The soldier stops in front of a closed door, nods, then turns to leave, offering no further instructions. Ryland stands alone, facing what must be Ceres's private quarters. He steels himself, remembering the fiery collision in the briefing room. He wonders if she's called him here to continue that conflict, to punish him, or perhaps something else entirely. His heart thrums with uncertainty. The door slides open, revealing a dimly lit space that's surprisingly spacious for a battleship. The aesthetic is alien, with curved walls and a faint, pulsing glow along the baseboards. He enters carefully. She stands near a tall viewport overlooking the stars, arms folded behind her back. The silhouette of her frame against the starlight is both regal and fearsome. She doesn't turn around as he steps inside, and the door closes behind him. For a moment, he watches her from across the room. Her hair, braided into sleek rows, reveals the graceful curve of her neck and the faint luminescence tracing her skull. The rest of the chamber is austere: a single, alien-style bed, a low table, and a series of integrated consoles. No trophies, no flamboyant decorations. It strikes him that she isn't one for frivolities. She finally addresses him without turning. "I had you brought here because we need to talk." He moves closer, stopping a few paces behind her. "About what?" She exhales, and he sees the subtle lift of her shoulders. "You risked everything to help me save this ship. You've also made it clear you have no love for my empire, and you never will." His throat tightens. "Your empire destroyed my people." Now she turns, her face etched with shadows. "Yes. We did. And we're still at war. Except now I find myself in a compromised situation. By keeping you alive and in my presence, I risk the wrath of my superiors if they learn how close I came to losing my command. They might see you as a threat, or interpret my actions as weakness. I can't simply set you free. Nor can I execute you, not after you helped save this warship." He shakes his head, a bitter laugh catching in his throat. "Seems like you're trapped." Her jaw flexes. "I am no one's prisoner. But I have difficult choices. You're part of them." She steps nearer, until the warm scent of her washes over him. "You also have to decide. If you try to exploit my vulnerability and plan sabotage or escape, I'll have to kill you. But if you stay, do as I command, I can protect you." He searches her face. "Protect me? I'm a soldier, not a pet." She bristles, luminous markings flaring at his words. "I'm aware. You've more than proven your capabilities." Her gaze flicks to his mouth before darting back to his eyes. She lowers her voice. "But don't forget your position. You're the war trophy, the human who belongs to me." He exhales sharply. "Belongs? Let me tell you something, no matter what you claim, I don't belong to anyone. A faint sneer curves her lips, but she doesn't argue the point. Instead, she steps aside, motioning to a small container on a low table. Sit. Clean that wound. He hadn't realized the tear along his forearm had seeped blood again. Must have reopened from the earlier fights. She turns away, fiddling with the clasp of her own armor plates. I have repairs to make as well. He hesitates, then moves to the container, finding alien medical supplies inside. They seem straightforward enough, sprays and bandages, labeled with glyphs he partly recognizes. He peels back the sleeve, wincing at the sting as he sprays the wound. The solution foams, then numbs. He wraps a bandage, grateful for the simple relief. Sarah sets aside her cracked armor piece, revealing the underlayer that clings to her torso. Scorch marks line the fabric, and a faint bruise blooms just beneath her collarbone, a dark patch against her skin. She touches it lightly, a grimace flickering across her face. Ryland's eyes linger there longer than he intends. The memory of their heated clash returns, the force of her body against his. Despite himself, he feels a subtle ache of wanting. She notices his stare. Rather than snapping at him, she just lifts an eyebrow. If you're done staring, help me with this, she says, gesturing to a strap on the back of her underlayer that's frayed and stuck. He hesitates, unsure if it's a trick or an invitation. She waits impatiently. He sets down the bandages and steps behind her, careful as he unclips the damaged fastening. The fabric shifts, revealing more of her skin, sleek, pale, marked with those faint luminous lines. He breathes quietly, letting no reaction show. She fixes the garment, then glances over her shoulder at him. Thank you? He steps back, crossing his arms. What happens now, General? She walks to the viewport, her posture thoughtful. Now we dock at the outpost. I'll receive reinforcements. My command will remain intact, assuming I spin the events properly. The official report will say I crushed a mutiny and took a human prisoner who proved unexpectedly useful. The meltdown was averted through my leadership. That's all they need to know. Useful, he echoes with a tinge of sarcasm. Her gaze flicks to him, a faint smirk forming. More than that. But do you want me to detail it in a formal report? I could. Commander Ryland Dane, human, lethal aim, excellent defusal skills, dangerously stubborn, and prone to outbursts. Her tone softens, becoming something close to a purr. And some other notable qualities. Heat flares in him, half anger, half something else. He closes the distance, stopping inches away. You think I'm going to roll over and become a willing soldier for your empire? She tilts her chin up. No. But you want to survive. You want your revenge in some form. Staying alive is a good start. He grinds his teeth. I won't forget what happened to my people. I don't expect you to. But if you cooperate, maybe you'll find a path to bring them some measure of justice, or at least an end to endless war. She turns, so close that her breath schemes his cheek. And maybe that path goes through me. He wants to snarl at her arrogance, but there's a thread of truth. He can't fight the entire empire alone. For now, staying close to her might be his only chance. He hates it, but he also can't deny the pulse of desire that accompanied the hatred. She stands so near, he can feel the faint hum of her presence again. He wonders if it's a biological reaction, her species exuding pheromones, or if it's purely psychological, the rush of danger that draws him. Her eyes flick to the bruise on his face, a souvenir of their earlier conflict. Slowly, without the usual force, she lifts a hand to touch the edge of the injury. Does it still hurt? He exhales, the sensation sending a faint jolt through him. I've had worse. She nods, a distant expression on her face. For a heartbeat, she almost looks remorseful. Then she steps back, armor clinking softly. Rest, she orders. We arrive at the outpost soon. I'll have a guard fetch you when I need you. I have matters to attend to. It feels abrupt, but he just nods curtly. Fine. As he turns to leave, she speaks again, quietly. Ryland. He pauses, glancing over his shoulder. It's the first time she's used his name instead of calling him human or soldier. She seems to search for words. Finally, she settles on, "Do not attempt to escape. You won't survive out there on your own." He shrugs, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. "I'm fully aware." The door slides open, and he departs. The corridor is as chaotic as ever, with engineering teams patching bulkheads. But soon he notices the slow hush that falls over the warship. Systems are stabilizing. The immediate crisis has passed. Now it's a matter of limping back to the outpost, presumably to rearm and refurbish. Time drags. He's given a corner bunk in an officer's barracks, an odd privilege for a prisoner of war. Some of the alien officers scowl at him, others remain neutral. Word travels that he fought alongside the general, saving the ship. Rumors swirl that maybe he's her new pet. He catches the sneers, but no one dares confront him openly. He's more or less left alone. Days pass in a blur of repairs and half-hostile stares. He only sees Saris in passing. Each time, they lock eyes. The tension remains a coiled serpent, waiting. They don't speak of the confrontation in her quarters or the kiss in the briefing room. It simmers beneath the surface. Eventually, the battered warship drops out of faster-than-light travel near a looming station built into an asteroid's surface. Sprawling docking arms extend, lit by beacons that guide the vessel into a cradle. Alarms and klaxons signal the final approach. Ryland stands at a viewport with a guard at his side, watching the outpost grow until it fills the view. Once docked, the airlocks connect, and a flurry of activity begins. Supplies, medical teams, fresh troopers. Ryland is summoned to an antechamber near the main docking bay. He finds Saris there, wearing a newly restored uniform, though a faint bruise remains along her collarbone. She's flanked by half a dozen elite soldiers. Her posture is rigid. "Stand by my side," she instructs him in a clipped tone. "Do not speak unless spoken to. I must present you to the station commander." He arches a brow. "Present me? You are my war trophy," she hisses under her breath. "Remember? Play the role, or this goes badly for both of us." He grits his teeth but says nothing. Outside the antechamber, a hulking alien in elaborate uniform marches in, flanked by attendants. They greet Saris in a flurry of their language. She bows her head slightly, adopting the formal posture of respect. Then she gestures to Ryland. The station commander's eyes flick over him with disapproval, suspicion. Saris explains in clipped alien phrases. Ryland doesn't catch everything, but he gathers the gist. She's telling them how she put down the mutiny, how she claimed him from the final human outpost, and how he proved an unexpectedly useful asset. The station commander grunts, unimpressed, but acknowledges the importance of Saris's victory. Ryland remains silent, arms at his sides, resisting the urge to lash out. He can only imagine how demeaning it must look, him, a commander of his people, standing behind her as if he's an accessory. But he also knows any sign of open defiance could ruin her precarious hold on power, and by extension, put him in immediate jeopardy. He clenches his jaw and endures it. After a few minutes of formalities, the station commander waves them off, too busy to dwell on details. Saris inclines her head respectfully, then turns and strides away with Ryland in tow. The tension in her posture finally eases once they're out of the commander's sight. "Pathetic," she mutters. "He doesn't care about the mutiny as long as I report success. Typical Imperial short-sightedness." She leads him into a side corridor, where the station's walls are carved from the asteroid rock, integrated with alien metal supports. "I have to oversee repairs for the next week. You'll be confined to my assigned quarters here, under guard. Don't try anything foolish." He releases a slow breath. "I wouldn't survive 5 minutes on this station alone, would I?" She nods without looking at him. "No. The local patrols would kill you on sight or worse. You need me, Ryland. Don't forget that." He hates the truth in her statement. He wonders if she likewise needs him for some personal reason. As they enter the station's labyrinth, she gestures to a door manned by 2 guards. Inside is a suite far more comfortable than the cramped bunk he had on the warship. A bed, a small lounge area, and a window that shows the station's interior, freighters drifting in and out, cargo shuttles buzzing around. The guards stand at attention outside. Saris takes him inside, letting the door slide shut. She stands near the bed, arms folded. Her expression is unreadable. This is where you'll stay. You'll have minimal freedom, but it's better than a cage. He exhales slowly, dropping his gaze to the alien weave carpet. We're both stuck in a complicated arrangement. I'm under your control, but if your empire discovered we cooperated so closely, you'd face consequences. Seems you're as trapped as I am. A flicker of anger dances in her eyes. Don't presume to know my position. She steps closer. But yes. We're both walking a narrow line. He meets her stare. The memory of their desperate kiss rears up again, still burning in the back of his mind. She's so close he can see the faint lines of exhaustion around her eyes, the tightness in her jaw. A swirl of contradictory feelings wells up, resentment, gratitude, lust, hatred. She holds his gaze, something flickering deep in her alien irises. Then, abruptly, she turns away. Get some rest. And don't leave this room. He watches her stride out. The door slides shut, and the echo of her departure lingers. He sinks onto the bed, running a hand through his short hair. The events replay in his mind, how they met on that warship, her initial command for him to kneel, the brutal battles, the meltdown fiasco, the forced alliance, the near-death bomb defusal, that savage moment of tangled mouths and bruising grips. It's all so unreal. Days pass on the station. Ryland's routine is limited to the suite, except when Saris calls for him to accompany her somewhere. She busies herself with overseeing the warship's reconstruction, meeting with station officials, preparing dispatches for her empire. He occasionally catches glimpses of her from afar, striding through corridors with her retinue, barking orders. He can't deny the surge of conflicting emotions whenever their eyes meet. Late one evening, as he leans by the window, watching the cargo vessels shuffle through the docking bay, the door chimes. He tenses. Enter, he calls, stepping away from the glass. She walks in, her posture stiff, but her face set with determined focus. Without waiting for an invitation, she approaches. The door closes behind her, leaving them alone again. He notices the fatigue in her eyes. She's been pushing herself, trying to prove to everyone that the mutiny was just a hiccup in her unstoppable reign. Have you eaten? She asks abruptly. He blinks at the unexpected question. I had rations earlier. She drops a small package on the table. The station's provisions. Better than warship fare. Take it. She crosses her arms, as if daring him to refuse. He doesn't. He opens it, finds a simple meal that at least looks more appetizing than standard rations. He's hungry, so he starts to eat in silence. She watches him, saying nothing for a moment. Then she speaks quietly. I've been thinking about the next step. He glances up. Which is? She takes a slow breath. My empire expects me to continue pushing into human territory after repairs. But the truth is, we're stretched thin. The mutiny was a symptom of a deeper unrest among my forces. They're tired of endless war. And she stops, jaw tightening. I must still appear strong, or we'll all fall apart. He sets the food aside. So you'll keep invading human worlds? She looks away. That's the official plan. But I'm reconsidering. Perhaps there's another way. A political solution, a negotiation. I don't know yet. The Empire thrives on conquest, so any move toward peace could be seen as treason. But if I don't do something, we'll tear ourselves apart from within. He stands, crossing his arms. Why tell me this? I'm just your prisoner. Or your trophy. Because, she says softly, you fought for your people's survival. Maybe if we... She stops again, frustration twisting her features. This is absurd, isn't it? Confiding in an enemy. He searches her face. It might be our only chance. Too many have died on both sides. She nods, a grim acceptance in her eyes. Then she steps forward, reaching out hesitantly. He doesn't move, letting her hand settle on his shoulder. Her palm is warm, even through the layers of fabric. I hate that it's come to this, she says. That I must rely on you, and you on me. But the alternative is more death. He exhales, tension coiling within him. What's your plan? She shakes her head. I'm not sure yet. But if I can maintain my power base, I may be able to broker something behind the scenes. I'll need your cooperation, and maybe the cooperation of other human survivors. If we can show some success, maybe we can force the Empire's hand, or at least make them see reason. He can't believe what he's hearing. An alien general who single-handedly led invasions now speaking of reason? He tries to mask his skepticism. You realize your Empire might see you as a traitor for even considering this. I do. Her eyes flick to his. And you might see me as a monster. He's quiet. I do. But maybe you can choose not to be one. Something in her expression softens, only to be replaced by the flicker of old arrogance. Don't think I'm suddenly saintly. I won't hesitate to break anyone who threatens my command. But I'm exploring possibilities. They stand there, the tension between them a living thing. Finally, she drags her hand away from his shoulder. Your wounds, are they healing well? He shrugs. Yes. The bruises, too. She folds her arms. Good. She glances around the suite, then back at him. I know it's not ideal, but you're safer here than out there. A wry smile tugs at his lips. Safer with you. Strange world. She gives a non-committal grunt. Then she turns to leave. At the doorway, she hesitates. You saved my life multiple times, Commander Dane. Don't forget, that means I owe you. In our culture, that's not a debt taken lightly. Before he can respond, she's gone, the door sliding shut. He collapses into a chair, mind spinning. This is a precarious alliance, but it's an alliance nonetheless. They need each other in a way that neither wants to admit. And despite the weight of the past, despite everything that should push them apart, they keep getting drawn back together, like two celestial bodies locked in each other's gravitational pull. In the following days, Saris works tirelessly to rebuild her warship's might. The station becomes abuzz with supply deliveries, weapon refits, new recruits. She manages to keep the upper brass off her back by projecting unwavering confidence, and telling them what they want to hear about continuing the conquest. Behind the scenes, however, she's quietly inquiring into the possibility of covert talks with certain human factions that might be open to negotiation. One evening, as Ryland sits by the window, the door slides open again. She enters, wearing a lighter, more casual version of her uniform. The tension in her face is evident. She steps up to him, gaze flicking across his features. Come, she says simply, motioning for him to follow. There's something you should see. He rises and follows her through winding corridors until they reach an observation platform on the station's perimeter. The curved glass shows the damaged warship in the dock, swarmed by engineering drones. She stands at the railing, silent for a moment. Tomorrow, she says, we run final diagnostics and then depart. The Empire wants me to seize another strategic point in human territory. I told them I would. She looks sideways at him, her eyes glinting in the dim station lights. I have no intention of doing so. Not yet. He glances at the battered warship. So where will you go? She exhales. We'll make it appear as though we're heading to the front lines. Partway through, we detour. I know a remote system on the fringe, near the border. We can gather intelligence, possibly make contact with humans who might be willing to talk. Or at least we can avoid plunging into another bloodbath. He studies her, half disbelieving, half hopeful. You're risking everything to try and broker peace? She sets her jaw. I'm risking everything to find a path that isn't pure destruction. Don't mistake it for benevolence. I'm doing it because I see no other way to maintain order. If the Empire continues this bloody rampage, we'll collapse under our own weight. He nods, leaning on the railing. A moment passes between them, quiet but loaded. How can I help? She faces him fully, eyes searching his. You said you have connections among the human resistance? He thinks of the scattered survivors, the pockets of fighters who fled the onslaught. Yes. Some still live underground on conquered worlds. Others roam deep space, hitting back when they can. If we can prove we're sincere, maybe they'll meet. If we create a small enough meeting point, keep it off the Empire's radar. She trails off, her eyes reflecting the starlight. We might be able to open a dialogue. He presses his lips into a thin line. I can try to get word out, but it's dangerous for them to trust an alien warlord. She almost smiles at that. I don't expect them to trust me overnight. But we must try. They stand side by side, gazing at the battered warship. The lingering hostility between them hasn't vanished, but a new sense of purpose unites them. It's strange, exhilarating, terrifying. Like stepping onto a narrow bridge over a roaring chasm. He turns to her, noticing how the station lights contour her face. Saris, he says softly, using her first name without a title for the first time. She shifts her gaze to him, faint surprise flickering across her features. I won't betray you, he continues. But don't betray me either. She nods once, solemn. I won't. A subtle thrumming tension remains. She's still the alien general who claimed him. He's still the human who can't forget his people's suffering. But they've reached a fragile understanding. The path ahead is uncertain, fraught with potential disaster, but also with a glimmer of hope, something neither of them has had in a long time. He extends a hand toward her, not entirely sure what he's doing. She looks at it, hesitates, then places her own in his, her fingers strong and warm. The contact feels symbolic, two warriors bridging a divide. Neither looks away. In that moment, the station's overhead lighting casts them in stark relief against the cold backdrop of space, two silhouettes standing together in defiance of a war that tried to consume them both. When the moment passes, she withdraws her hand gently. Her expression remains guarded, but the flicker in her eyes suggests that she's as shaken as he is. Without a word, they leave the observation platform, walking side by side down the corridor. He can feel her presence, steady and imposing, but now tempered by this tenuous alliance. Soldiers pass, giving them a wide berth. That night, in her quarters, tension explodes again. She summons him on the pretense of discussing flight plans. He arrives to find her alone, out of her heavier armor. The conversation begins stiffly, talk of routes and sensor evasion. But soon it devolves into another confrontation of emotions either can suppress. He stands across from her, arms crossed. What are you really after tonight? She arches a brow. I told you. Flight plans. He steps closer, voice a low rumble. Liar. Her eyes flare. Be careful how you speak to me, Commander. He closes the distance, a storm of conflicting wants swirling within him. I stopped caring about rank when you forced me to my knees in that war chamber. She doesn't retreat. In fact, she lifts her chin, meeting him with equal defiance. And you never knelt? Not truly. Maybe I would have, if you had commanded in a different way. He snarls, not even knowing what he means by that. But you had to break me, and I refused. Now look at us. She exhales shakily, the luminescence on her throat pulsing. He sees the reflection of his own rage and desire in her expression. Yes, she whispers. Look at us. They collide in a heated rush. There's no gentleness, no preamble. It's a frenzy of mouths and hands and desperate breath. She shoves him against the metal wall, gripping his hair. He growls, spinning her around, pinning her wrists to the cold surface. She twists free, reversing their positions. Each movement is a struggle for dominance. It's not love in the traditional sense. It's a raw, primal storm of two combative souls meeting in a space that's equal parts hatred and need. Her nails rake across his back, finding flesh through torn fabric. He grips her hip, pulling her against him. Their breathing tangles, rough and uneven. When their lips part, she looks up at him, eyes burning. You infuriate me, she says through clenched teeth, though there's no real menace in it. Likewise, he rasps, pressing his forehead to hers. We're mad to do this. Her hands slide around his back, nails easing. Maybe madness is all we have left. For a time, they lose themselves in that madness. It's not a tender union. It's marked by bruises, ragged breathing, hands grasping at any available purchase. Yet underneath the bruises, there's a strange comfort, like two battered hearts acknowledging they can't stand alone anymore. Afterward, they lie amid twisted sheets in the faint glow of the overhead lights. She stares at the ceiling, arms draped across her abdomen. He rests beside her, fighting the urge to drift off. Every muscle in his body aches, but a distant satisfaction hums in his veins. He feels her shift, her gaze turning to him. How do we face each other in the morning? She asks softly, her usual arrogance replaced by a subdued note. He thinks for a moment. We do what we must. Lead, plan, fight. But we both know something changed here. She nods in the dimness. Yes. A pause. This doesn't mean I've changed sides. I'm still the general of an empire that your people despise. He reaches over, brushing a strand of hair off her forehead. And I'm still a human soldier who despises what you've done. But maybe we can carve out a path to something else. If we're careful. She closes her eyes. If we're very careful. They drift into an uneasy sleep, lulled by each other's body heat and the background hum of the station. When they wake, reality intrudes. She rises first, reassembling her armor of authority, both literal and figurative. He dresses, wincing at the fresh bruises. There's a moment where their eyes meet, and a trace of last night's intensity passes between them. But they don't speak of it. Within hours, the warship completes final checks. The station's docking clamps release, and the massive vessel eases away into the void. Ryland stands on the bridge, slightly off to the side, watching Saris command her crew. It's surreal. She stands tall, voice resonating with authority, issuing orders that set them on course for the Empire's designated front. The official route is locked in. Yet they both know the plan is to divert, to head for the remote system where they might broker a secret meeting. Her subordinates remain unaware, save a few of her most trusted lieutenants. The rest follow the course like loyal drones. Ryland keeps his silence, noticing the sidelong looks he receives. Some of the crew have accepted his presence as an odd new reality. Others resent him. But no one dares contradict Saris's claim on him. Once they're clear of the station's gravity well and deep into faster-than-light travel, Saris retires to her private command chambers, summoning Ryland a short while later. The moment he enters, she's pacing before a large star map hologram. Tiny blinking lights indicate probable human hideouts. She stops when she sees him, tension etched on her features. I've marked a potential contact point, she says. A known rebel group rumored to inhabit the ruins of a once thriving colony. They're savage but cunning. He steps up to the hologram, scanning the star map. Yes. I've heard of them. If we approach in an alien warship, they'll assume we're attacking. She nods. We'll have to send a small infiltration unit with you leading it, or maybe me. We can't do a grand show of force. He glances at her. You sure you want to walk into a rebel stronghold? A grim smile touches her lips. They'll kill me on sight if I go alone. Hence why we need a plan that shows we come in peace. He can't help a wry chuckle. Coming in peace with stolen territory and advanced weapons. Quite the picture. She glares. You're not making this easy. But yes, it's complicated. That's why we must proceed carefully. They spend hours hashing out a strategy, debating who should go, what equipment to bring, how to approach the rebels without sparking immediate bloodshed. It's a tedious and delicate process, punctuated by arguments. Their dynamic is fraught with conflicting viewpoints, but they also push each other to find the best solutions. In a twisted way, they complement each other's strengths, her unwavering leadership and strategic cunning, his deep knowledge of human resistance networks and how to navigate their suspicions. At times, the tension in the room becomes palpable, not from disagreements about strategy, but from the memory of their physical clash. The way she looks at him when she thinks he's not noticing, the way his breath hitches if her hand brushes his. They keep it reined in, aware that any slip might distract from the high stakes at hand. On the third day of travel, the moment of diversion arrives. Under the cover of a staged engine malfunction, Saris orders the ship to drop out of faster-than-light early. The official logs show a navigational glitch. In reality, she redirects the course. The star map shifts, plotting a new path toward the remote system. A hush falls over the bridge as the handful of informed officers quietly adjust navigational data. The rest of the crew remains convinced it's just a temporary detour for repairs. Ryland stands near the main console, heart pounding. This is it, the point of no return. If the Empire finds out they deviated from the plan, Saris will be labeled a traitor. If the warship's crew discovers they're not heading to the front lines, they might mutiny again. Yet Saris remains outwardly calm, issuing commands in a crisp, unflinching tone. They slip through the darkness of space, heading toward the star system rumored to house the rebel base. As they draw closer, the atmosphere on the ship tightens. Rumors swirl among the crew, and Saris's loyalists work overtime to maintain order. Ryland sees the strain in her posture, the flicker of anxiety she tries to hide. But she remains resolute, eyes fixed on the star map. Finally, they reach orbit around a desolate planet, its surface scarred by old battles. Ryland recognizes the name, Carth Prime. Once a bustling colony, now a ruin of craters and twisted metal. Long-range scans reveal faint energy signatures consistent with underground bunkers. That's where the rebels likely hide. Saris calls him into the war chamber, an area partially repaired from their earlier meltdown crisis. The ring of weapons is gone, but the circular design and overhead lights remain. She stands at the center, arms folded, flanked by a few trusted officers. She waves Ryland forward. "Commander Dane," she says, voice formal. "You will lead a small scouting party to the planet's surface. Seek out the resistance. Request a parley. We can't broadcast openly or the Empire might intercept. Discretion is paramount." He nods, glancing at the officers. "I'll need neutral attire, minimal weaponry. If I show up in your armor, they'll shoot me on sight." She gestures, and one of her officers steps forward with a small container. Inside is a simple black outfit, nondescript, plus a sidearm and a device that likely functions as a translator and communicator. Ryland takes them, turning them over in his hands. The officer explains some basic safety features, but the real protection, he knows, is not drawing attention. Saris dismisses the others, then faces him alone. The overhead lights create a halo behind her, reminiscent of the day they first met in this chamber. His mind flashes to the memory of her commanding him to kneel. "Are you certain you can do this?" she asks quietly. "If you betray me now, run to your fellow humans and rally them to destroy my ship, I won't survive." He exhales. "You're giving me quite an opportunity." "Yes," she admits, a raw vulnerability creeping into her tone. "I'm gambling that you won't seize it." He steps closer, searching her face. "I told you I won't betray you. That doesn't mean I've forgiven what you did. But I want this war to end." She nods slowly. "So do I." Her gaze lowers for a moment. "Come back alive, Ryland. If you don't, everything we've struggled for is lost." His chest tightens at the genuine concern that threads her voice. "I will." Impulsively, he reaches out and touches her arm. She stiffens, but doesn't pull away. He squeezes gently. "Trust is a fragile thing between us. I won't break it." She covers his hand with hers, the faint luminescence pulsing where they touch. Her eyes meet his, and in their depths, he sees fear, determination, maybe even affection tangled with bitterness. She releases him, stepping back. "Go." He nods, turning on his heel. The warship's corridors blur as he gathers his small team, a handful of her loyal soldiers who understand the covert nature of the mission and are sworn to secrecy. They descend in a stealth shuttle, weaving through Carth Prime's thick, dust-laden atmosphere, engines throttled low to avoid detection. Below, the terrain is bleak. Rusted skeletons of buildings jut from the cracked earth, and the sky glows an angry orange from residual environmental damage. The shuttle lands behind a rock outcropping, hidden from overhead scans. He steps out, the team fanning behind him. Each wears minimal armor. He adjusts the cloak of black fabric around his shoulders, feeling oddly exposed without the heavier uniform. They traverse the rubble in tense silence, scanning the area with handheld devices. Occasional wind gusts stir red-brown dust, stinging their eyes. Everywhere, there's evidence of past battles, burned-out vehicles, collapsed bunkers, even skeletons bleached by the harsh conditions. Ryland's gut twists at the memories this stirs of other colonies destroyed by Ceres's empire. After a few hours of searching, they detect a faint energy signature beneath a collapsed structure. Ryland signals for the group to spread out, approaching carefully. He knows the rebels here are rumored to be ruthless. If they suspect an ambush, they'll strike first. He finds a half-buried hatch disguised in the rubble. It's locked and reinforced. Carefully, he taps a sequence on the communicator, hoping to send a coded signal that the rebels might recognize. At first, there's nothing. Then a red light flickers. He repeats the sequence, adding an old human resistance code. The ground trembles as the hatch slides open a crack. An armed rebel appears in the shadows, a gaunt figure with a scarred face. His weapon, a patched plasma rifle, points directly at Ryland. State your name and purpose. Ryland lifts his hands in a gesture of non-aggression. Commander Ryland Dane, formerly of the 9th Human Fleet. The rebel's eyes narrow. The 9th Fleet was decimated last year. You should be dead. Almost was. He keeps his voice calm, measured. I escaped captivity. I need to speak with your leader. It concerns an alliance, or at least a negotiation. The rebel spits. Alliance? With whom? Ryland steels himself. An alien general, Ceres Vierock. The rebel's grip on the rifle tightens. You're insane if you think we'd negotiate with her. She slaughtered thousands. Ryland feels the sting of those words. I know. But war has cost both sides dearly. She's willing to talk. Are you going to shoot me, or give me a chance to explain? Several more rebels appear, weapons trained. The first glances among them, uncertainty etched on his face. Finally, he waves a hand. Seize them. Take their weapons. We'll let the boss decide. Ryland and his group comply, allowing the rebels to relieve them of arms. They're marched into the hatch, down a series of dank corridors lit by flickering emergency lamps. The air is stale but breathable. Echoes of dripping water suggest they're deep underground. The path opens into a wider chamber where a cluster of rebels stands, eyes filled with suspicion. At the center is a woman with a cybernetic arm, burned scars crossing her left cheek. She looks at Ryland with a mix of shock and fury. Commander Dane? We thought you died on the last stand. Where the hell have you been? He lowers his gaze. In alien hands? Captured by Ceres Vierock. I escaped. Now I'm here to talk. Talk about what? She demands, crossing her arms. He draws a breath. A chance to end this. If we keep fighting, we'll all be annihilated. She's willing to negotiate. A possible ceasefire. Murmurs ripple through the rebels. Some laugh bitterly, others shake their heads. The leader steps forward, metal fingers flexing. You can't be serious. She's the scourge of half our colonies. What kind of negotiation? Ryland meets her gaze head on. Something covert, something that doesn't put us all at risk right away. She has a plan to bring the Empire to a standstill if we can show them that continuing the invasion is untenable. But it needs the cooperation of the rebels. We can't do this alone. More murmurs. Some outright protest. The leader studies him, trying to gauge his sincerity. How do we know this isn't a trap? You don't, he admits. But you know me, Captain Hale. You served under my command once. I led human troops against her empire. I bled for them. Why would I come here just to betray you? She scowls, hand flexing into a metal fist. People change under torture. Maybe you're compromised. He shakes his head. I won't deny I've been through hell. But if she wanted to kill you, she could have bombed this planet from orbit. Instead, she's letting me try to broker a dialogue. Doesn't that say something? Hale's jaw works. Maybe. But we need more than your word, Commander. We need proof she won't burn us the moment we show our faces. She's risking her own command by doing this, he says. If the Empire finds out what she's planning, they'll brand her a traitor. She'd lose everything. Does that sound like a general who wants to maintain the status quo? Hale eyes him for a long beat. Fine. I'll hear you out. But you and your team will remain under guard. Any sign of betrayal, you die. They're led to a side chamber. It's cramped, the walls lined with crates of supplies. They wait while Captain Hale convenes with her council. Hours pass in an uneasy standoff. Ryland's people whisper doubts, but he urges them to stay calm. Tensions are high, but it's a chance, maybe the only chance. Eventually, Hale returns. She stands in the open doorway, arms folded. All right. We'll talk. But I want to see Saris in person, or at least get direct proof of her intentions. We can arrange a meeting in neutral territory on this planet. A place where neither side can easily ambush the other. You'll arrange that with her? Ryland nods. Yes. I will. She'll come. Hale narrows her eyes. She better come with minimal escort. No warship overhead, no bombardment. If I so much as sniff a trap. He meets her glare. Understood. Thus begins a new flurry of clandestine preparations. The rebels let Ryland use a secure channel to contact the warship, relaying the conditions for the meeting. Saris responds in a terse transmission that she agrees. The location, a ruined city square near the planet's southern hemisphere, cratered enough that neither side can hide large forces. Each side brings no more than 5 personnel. That's the deal. Captain Hale insists on jamming large-scale communications during the summit so either side can call in reinforcements. Paranoia runs deep. Ryland can't blame them. He's painfully aware that any wrong move could spark another bloodbath. But if this works, it could be the first real step toward peace. The day of the meeting arrives. Saris descends in a small shuttle with 4 of her most trusted soldiers. Ryland rides with her, feeling the tension practically vibrate in the cabin. She says nothing, jaw set, gaze fixed on the forward view screen. He notices she's donned a simpler armor set, less intimidating than her full regalia, but still undeniably commanding. They land in the designated zone, a blasted city square dominated by crumbling arches and blackened statues. The atmosphere is thick with dust. The rebels are already there, 5 figures standing with weapons slung but not raised. Captain Hale leads them, her mechanical arm gleaming under the hazy sun. No one else is visible, though both parties know there are likely hidden watchers. Saris and Hale step toward each other. Ryland lingers beside Saris, hand near his sidearm, scanning for any signs of treachery. The rebels do the same. The tension is gut-clenching. In the middle of the blasted square, these 2 women, once mortal enemies, stand a few feet apart, measuring each other in a loaded silence. Hale breaks it first. You're shorter than I expected, alien. Saris's lip curls. You want me to kneel so you can feel taller? Hale's grip on her rifle tightens. Watch it. I'm only here because of Commander Dane. Don't give me a reason to open fire. Saris shoots Ryland a glance, then exhales. We're not here to trade insults. We're here to talk about ending a war. Hale snorts. Talk. Right. She steps aside, gesturing to a partially intact concrete wall. Let's do it over there. Out in the open, but some cover from snipers. Saris nods curtly. They move, forming a rough semicircle. The 2 parties remain tense, weapons at the ready. Dust swirls around them. The battered remnants of a once thriving colony loom in every direction, silent witnesses to the destruction that has ravaged both sides. Ryland's heart pounds in his chest as he stands between them, trying to keep this from devolving into bloodshed. Hours pass. They argue, accuse, attempt to find common ground. Hale spits venom about the Empire's atrocities. Ceres counters with the claim that the Empire's expansion was driven by resource scarcity and the fear that humans would become a threat. It's an endless cycle of blame, but Rylan and the Rebel Council press for specifics on how to broker a ceasefire, how to create safe zones, how to exchange prisoners. Ceres reveals the fractures within the Empire, the potential for a political shift if enough high-ranking officials see the war as unwinnable. It's not a guarantee, but it's a crack in the Empire's armor. Tension spikes repeatedly. At one point, a rebel lunges forward, cursing the Empire for killing his family. Ceres's soldiers raise weapons, and chaos nearly explodes. Rylan steps in, physically restraining the rebel, while Ceres shouts at her men to stand down. Hale screams for everyone to calm. Gradually, the moment passes. But it leaves everyone shaking, sweaty, and aware of how close they came to violence. By nightfall, though, a rough outline emerges. An agreement to share certain intel, to set up a meeting with key human resistance leaders in a neutral star system, to arrange a controlled truce in certain contested zones. It's all fragile. One betrayal could unravel it. But for the first time, real dialogue has begun. Ceres stands with Rylan as the day's negotiations end. Her posture is exhausted, yet triumphant. Hale approaches them, helmet under her arm, face grim. "We've come further than I ever thought possible," she says, voice tight. "But don't think I trust you, alien." Ceres inclines her head. "I don't expect your trust. Only your cooperation for now." Hale glances at Rylan. "You've changed. I never thought I'd see the day you stood side by side with an enemy general." He sighs. "Believe me, I never thought so either." She holds his gaze. "Just don't forget who you are, Commander." He nods, swallowing a lump in his throat. "I won't." With that, Hale and her rebels withdraw, disappearing into the labyrinth of rubble. Ceres's soldiers exhale in relief, lowering their weapons. The sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the destroyed city. Rylan closes his eyes briefly, letting the tension bleed out of his muscles. They did it. The first step. He feels Ceres's hand brush his arm. He looks at her. She seems unsteady, as if the weight of the day's events finally crashed onto her. He reaches out, resting a hand on her shoulder. For once, she doesn't push him away. They stand there in the twilight, dust swirling around them, battered by the day's emotional warfare, yet still upright. "You fought for this," he says quietly. "And you succeeded." She exhales a trembling breath. "It's just the beginning. Beginnings are everything," he murmurs, recalling a time when he believed all beginnings were lost to him. Now, here he stands, with an alien general he was supposed to hate, forging an alliance that might change the fate of both sides. They walk back to the shuttle. Her soldiers eye them, but say nothing. The flight to the warship is silent. Once aboard, they retire to her quarters, leaving the rest to secure the perimeter. She leans against the wall, sliding down until she sits on the floor, head in her hands. He sits beside her, the hum of the warship's engines lulling them into a strange peace. "That was more draining than any battle," she admits, voice muffled. "One wrong word, and we'd be at each other's throats." He nods, studying the lines of stress on her face. "But you held it together." She lifts her head, gazing at him with those shifting eyes. "Because you were there." His breath catches. Slowly, he places a hand on her knee. "I don't know where we go from here, Ceres." She answers by leaning into him, resting her forehead against his shoulder. The fierce, unyielding general allowing herself a moment of vulnerability. He wraps an arm around her, gently, mindful of her bruises. They sit like that in the quiet, the only sound the low thrumming of the ship. When she finally speaks, her voice is soft. "We stand together. For as long as it takes to make sure this war ends." He rubs circles against her back. "And after that?" She lifts her eyes, a faint, unsure smile curving her lips. "After that, perhaps we figure out who we are, when we're not locked in battle." He tilts her chin up, meeting her gaze. "We'll find out. Together." She kisses him then, softly for the first time, no bruising force or desperate clash, just a lingering press of lips that promises something more hopeful. He returns it, pulling her closer. Exhaustion mingles with relief and a fragile sense of peace. They have a long road ahead, but for now, this moment is theirs. In the days that follow, news spreads quietly among her loyal circle that a truce is in the works. She and Rylan coordinate new meetings, small steps toward bridging the chasm between their peoples. It won't be easy, and it won't be quick. But each day, there's progress. Eventually, they dock at a hidden location where a handful of other human representatives gather. The Empire's upper echelons remain oblivious, believing Ceres is simply waging war on the front lines. In reality, she's forging the outlines of peace. The final confrontation with the Empire's leadership looms. She'll have to reveal her hand eventually, but she's gathering enough support to force a real negotiation. One evening, after a long strategy session, Rylan finds Ceres on the observation deck, gazing at a swirling nebula outside. He steps up behind her, resting a gentle hand on her waist. She allows it, leaning back against him. The starlight bathes them in soft hues. They stand silently, hearts beating in unison. "We're getting closer," he murmurs. "The rebels trust you more each day. Even if they don't like you." She smiles slightly. "I wouldn't trust me either, in their shoes." He brushes a kiss against her temple. "You've earned it, though." She turns in his arms, sliding her hands up to his shoulders. Her expression is a mix of pride, relief, and lingering doubt. "I never wanted this war to define me." He smooths a thumb across the curve of her cheek. "It doesn't have to. Not anymore." She grips his collar, pulling him down into a slow, deep kiss. This time, there's no violence in it, just a surging wave of warmth that wraps around them both. Their foreheads rest together when they break apart. Her markings glow softly, reflecting an emotion she rarely shows. "This feels surreal," she whispers. He strokes her hair. "And inevitable." They remain like that, entwined, gazing at the stars. In the reflection of the viewport, he sees them standing as one silhouette, a human and an alien general who once tried to destroy each other. Now, against all odds, they've chosen to stand together, forging a future no one else dared envision. The next few months pass in a whirlwind of delicate negotiations, covert contacts, and strategic maneuvers that allow Ceres to maintain just enough favor with her empire to avoid suspicion. Behind the scenes, alliances form between various human resistance cells and her loyal forces. When the time is right, Ceres and Rylan present their ultimatum to the Empire's Council: accept a ceasefire and peace talks, or risk collapse from internal revolts and united human resistance. The Empire, overextended and facing growing unrest, grudgingly agrees to preliminary talks. It's a monumental shift. The war that had seemed endless finally has a path to resolution. Ceres stands at the negotiating table as her empire's representative. Rylan stands as the human counterpart. There are tensions, heated arguments, and old wounds laid bare. But progress is made, step by painstaking step. Months later, the war is officially declared at an armistice. The details will take years to fully iron out, but the bloodshed slows to a trickle, and countless lives are spared. Some zealots on both sides never accept it, but the majority are too weary of destruction to continue. For the first time in decades, the galaxy breathes a cautious sigh of relief. On the day the final armistice documents are signed in a massive chamber lit by swirling holograms, Ceres and Rylan exchange glances across the table. No one but them truly understands what it took to get here: the betrayals, the battles, the savage kisses shared in the midst of conflict. Their eyes speak of relief, triumph, and a bond forged in the fires of war. That night they slip away from the endless ceremonies and celebrations, finding each other in a quiet corner of the newly established neutral zone. She's wearing a simpler uniform, and he's in civilian attire for the first time in years. They stand beneath a vast skylight, stars twinkling overhead. Firelight from a courtyard dance flickers against her skin, illuminating the luminous markings that have always fascinated him. She wraps her arms around his neck, pulling him close. He curls his arms around her waist, breathing in the subtle, electric scent that's become comfortingly familiar. Their kiss is tender this time, the weight of war lifted from their shoulders. The universe seems to hold its breath around them, giving them a moment of peace. When they break apart, he rests his forehead against hers. We did it. She nods, eyes shining. Yes. We did. No more running, no more fighting. Their story isn't perfect, it's messy and scarred by loss. But they've reached a natural conclusion, a union that transcends battle lines and vendettas. In each other's arms, they find a future that neither of them ever dared hope for. Outside, the galaxy spins on. But for now, they stand together, unshaken, survivors of a war that could have swallowed them whole. There are no illusions that life will be easy, but at least they face it side by side, no longer enemies, but partners, both unstoppable in unity.